Welcome to NSH YouTube channel. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Godugunur Giridhar, a visionary in the solar energy sector and a driving force behind India's sustainable future. As director of Pashar Solar Private Limited and a key contributor to National Solar Mission, Dr. Giridhar's work in advancing solar technology and renewable energy research is unparalleled. His innovative use of machine learning in solar resource assessment and his commitment to ethical data practices have set new standards in the industry. Join us as we delve into the insights of a man whose dedication is lighting the way towards a greener tomorrow. Your research has extensively focused on the impact assessment of a short-term variability of solar radiation in India. What are the key findings or implications of this research for the renewable energy sector in India?
When the government of India has come out with National Solar Mission, the usage of solar energy, wind energy has gone up, particularly renewable energy has gone up leaps and bounds. So there are many difficult areas where the implementation of this program will start, particularly because the renewable energy technologies or the generation of energy from this renewable energy depends on the vagaries of nature. So the man or the persons, the officials has to understand how these variations in the weather will affect the generation of the energy generation, and then how to overcome these backlogs. Suppose if there is a sudden drop of solar energy because of passing clouds or sudden drop in wind energy, wind speeds. So how the generation of the power will vary. These are the questions which will affect the grid management ultimately. So to overcome this problem, this project was started particularly for solar projects, because this topic talks about National Solar Mission.
Your work on the development and testing of gap-filling procedures for solar radiation data in India is quite intriguing. How do these procedures contribute to enhancing the accuracy and reliability of solar energy resource assessments?
Yeah, it's a good question. The central government has started National Solar Mission, and they wanted to know what are the potentials of solar energy in India. So to first understand this, we have started the world's largest solar radiation network. A solar radiation network is a typical measuring station it is fully automatic station where human requirement or human presence is not required. So these type of stations, the largest in the world, 121 stations were installed across India, all over the state. So we have designed the location of the stations in such a way that every 200 kilometers you travel, you will find a solar radiation network station. So these stations principally they do automatically measure the weather parameters and solar parameters every second, and this data is updated and then passed on to a central server which is located in National Institute of Wind Energy at Chennai at central server. Here the data is automatically processed to ensure what is the data, how it is coming every minute, and then based on this data we have developed a solar radiation map across the India. This data will help you for the potential locations where we can identify based on this data and then implement solar farms. And it also helps for the policy makers to find out how this data is useful. Any measurements, any ground measurements inherently has some drawbacks. Sometimes because of fault in the instruments or servicing, the data is lost or communication links breaks down. There are various other reasons why the data will not be passed on to them. So we will be losing this data for a few minutes, sometimes few hours. So these gaps where the data is lost will be filled to ensure that the developer or the government people or the policy makers will get 100% data. So this gap filling is a very scientifically, technically developed data where the forecast of 100 years data is taken, backlog data, and how the every year, every day, on that particular day, how the solar radiation changes, and accordingly what will be that lost data could be implemented in this. It's more of a statistical analysis.
The feasibility studies on virtual power plant in India that you have been involved in are critical for the future of energy systems. What are the main challenges and opportunities you have encountered in this field?
Initially, the virtual power plant we started as a demo project. We wanted to start a demo project, but when during my tenure I was not able to complete that project. The idea of virtual power plant is that to ensure power supply to the grid 24/7. Suppose if you take solar energy works only during the daytime, whereas wind energy can be 24 hours or suddenly it drops and suddenly it goes up. Mostly wind energy will be maximum during the night hours. And if there is a drop in solar and wind energy, we have to ensure some other supply of energy to ensure that grid is 100% powered. So to ensure this, the solar energy, grid energy, hydro energy, wind energy, all these will be pooled and automatically controlled to ensure the power is given to the grid or the customer requirements. So it ensures the power generation from various sources to meet particular demand. So this is a new concept. We try to put it in India. However, during my tenure, I could not do it by the time I retired it. But this concept is very widely used in many of the European nations, developed nations. But it's a must for our country to ensure grid stability.
Your research emphasizes the importance of accurate solar resource assessment and mapping in India. How do you foresee these efforts impacting the growth and implementation of solar energy technologies in the country?
See, solar mapping will be useful for micrositing. Suppose India is blessed with abundance of solar energy, but everywhere we cannot put solar energy because of human habitation, forest area or wastelands, water bodies. So there are so many protected areas, defense areas. So all these have to be eliminated and we have to focus where the solar power plants can be kept. So the solar mapping is the first step for a developer to identify a particular site is suitable or not. Suppose if he identifies a village A. So in that village A, through solar mapping, he can find out whether it is a forest body or a forest body or water body or a restricted area. All these things he can start eliminating, whether it's an agriculture body. So all these fields, these things can be eliminated and then he can identify the site. Once he identifies the site, then he can also find out how many roads are there, what are the infrastructure facilities available like power evacuation, grid connection, grid evacuation, how do they export the power after generating to the nearby a substation, what is the substation capacity they are having, what type of a solar power plant they can keep, whether they can have a concentrated solar power plant or a solar PV based power plants. So, all these things they can visualize seeing this solar map. So, that is how this will help in identifying the site, and it helps in developers also to theoretically estimate how much solar energy they can generate in that particular area.
How do the Google Maps aid your solar resource mapping?
Yeah, we take Google Maps initially for the mapping, and then we develop by keeping the various layers into it, like forest area, defense area, roads, buildings, agriculture fields, villages, habited area, inhabited area. All these things can be layered into the system, and the top of it we will put the solar radiation. Solar radiation has three components. One is direct radiation, one is global radiation, and another is the diffuse radiation. So, we basically require global radiation and direct radiation for our solar power plants. So, our efforts in making this map will tell you what is the global radiation content, direct radiation content in these areas. Suppose for example, if you take a static solar panels, that is solar PV panels which does not move, they generally require global radiation. But there are technologies where the solar panels will move along with the sun. It is called concentrated solar power plants, where they track the sun, they take the direct radiation and concentrate in a one particular place, and then the energy is generated. So, for this we require more of direct radiation. This direct radiation is predominantly available in less polluted areas, hilly areas like Leh, Ladakh. They have high direct radiation concentration, whereas in cities, nearby villages, you have more of a global radiation. So, depending on the what type of component is more available, like diffuse radiation, global radiation or direct radiation, we can also design the technology, which type of technology we can use it. For that purpose, this solar mapping will also help in choice of selection of technologies.
What role do the contour lines play in this process?
Yeah, contour maps will definitely help you in laying of the panels and for shadow analysis. If there are high buildings or high mountains, high number of trees, this will help in avoiding the shadow areas, because we require shadow free areas for all our solar applications.
Your involvement in the operation of solar radiation resource assessment stations in India is remarkable. Could you elaborate on the significant contributions of this network in improving solar energy forecasting and planning?
Yeah, this is a different study. First thing is that solar forecasting is a different aspect altogether, because generation is one part and forecasting is the another part, because in grid management solar forecasting plays a vital role. For a grid operator, for power grid operators, they should know how much solar energy is going to come next 15 minutes, so that they can manage the grid to meet their power requirements of the city or a town or a industry. So, in these things what happens is, suppose I have a 100 megawatt solar farm in a particular area. So, this farm will give 100 megawatts of, let us assume some amount of X amount of power is being given to the grid. So, the electricity boards or the power grid operators, they are happy this much amount of power energy is coming into their grid. so that they can reduce their generation of other sources like hydro or atomic energy or whatever is there. But because of the passing clouds or a rainy season or for any other reasons, there is a breakdown in the solar power plant or sudden drop in the power generation, the power grid operator should be immediately work out how much power they should draw from other sources and put it into the grid, so that the grid management goes smoothly. So for this, the Government of India under Central Electricity Authority and Power Grid Corporations, they have made it mandatory for the developers, solar developers, to give a forecasting. That is, every 15 minutes, how much energy is going to come into the grid. If there is any deviation from my forecasting beyond certain limits, they will penalize the developers. So that will be a loss for the solar developers. So our data, which we are measuring from the ground, this data will help us in doing the forecasting after matching with the satellite data. So it's again a lot of you have to do a lot of work and work out on this ground data and measured data and the satellite data and come out with the forecasting. So once I know the solar forecasting, based on the solar forecasting, I know what is my panel capacities, what is their efficiencies, conversion efficiencies, energy generation. Based on the solar data, and I can imagine what is the power generation, I can calculate, and this data I have to regularly feed it to the SLDCs, we call them load dispatch centers, state load dispatch centers, where they manage the grid. This grid will take care of this solar forecasting will help the SLDCs to manage the grid. For this data is a basic requirements.
What are the key factors and considerations for assessing solar resources for concentrated solar power CSP projects in India based on your research findings?
The concentrated solar power plants, as I earlier explained, it works on the basic principle of taking the direct radiation and then concentrating into a focal point. It works like a magnifying lens, where during our childhood days we used to burn the newspapers or cotton by adjusting the distance between the sun and the magnifying lens, and we used to concentrate so in the same fashion the solar concentrated power technology works. It's a parabolic or line parabolic systems where huge mirrors will track the sun based on the GPS locations and then concentrate on the focal point where either steam is generated or heat is generated, and this steam is used to power the solar generation. Here basically, as I told you, the wherever the pollutions are high, the solar radiation is dispersed. So the concentration of solar rays will be much less. That's why these technologies are not widely used in city areas or in a global villages, but this technology can be used in a high ranges where there is a less pollution and high radiations are there. That is why if you see the Leh, Ladakh, our army people, they get sunburns same time, at the same time cold burns also, because they are exposed to, though it is temperatures are minus 40, 45, the sun radiation is very short. Sorry. And that is the reason why this direct radiation is so high. They get sunburns in the daytime, and also because their shoes are immersed in the snow covered areas. So they get sunburns and cold burns also. And these are the places where the concentrated solar power plants can be maximum utilized. And since it is easy to store this concentrated solar power because the steam can be stored if we can use it, or the thermal energy is stored in heat blocks, and then it can be used in the night hour operations also.
Your collaborative work on creating a new solar atlas and the combined mapping and monitoring approach for solar energy in India is quite impactful. What are the essential elements in creating such a comprehensive solar resource data for the country?
Um, we have collaborated with GIZ, a German government organization, in making this solar atlas. So we should be thankful to the German government cooperation for extending all their technical support, for providing us to make this solar atlas, and also develop the technologies for solar forecasting. So here the whole project was started at National Institute of Wind Energy, funded by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. It is fully funded by the ministry, and National Institute of Wind Energy is the R&D arm of the ministry. So here, under this cooperation with German government, they brought German experts to India. They worked closely with us and then developed this solar atlas. So in addition to the one of the largest solar radiation network we have created across the India, for the first time 4 of our stations were included in the global network of BSRN, that's called a Baseline Surface Radiation Network. It is a group of 64 nations, I think. No, 64 stations across the globe, and global scientists have formed this group and they exchange their data for our environmental impact studies. So this is a very prestigious work we have done to ensure our data, because we have met their global standards. It comes under our data is traceable to WMO, World Meteorological Organization, and we have become a partner or the members of this global network. That is one of the achievements which we have done, and this global atlas which we have prepared, it is a step ahead with the solar mapping. Solar atlas is the, as I was telling, it will eliminate the areas of different locations like forest area, sea area, water bodies, agriculture fields, protected areas. Apart from that, it will also gives you the additional information of what are the benefits a solar developer if he goes there. That is, what are the roads and conditions, accessibility to the power generation, what are the nearest substations, what capacity of the substations. So all these data will be included in the solar atlas. So before retirement, we were trying to include all these things into the map. After that, I think other people must have taken to the adding the other layers. So this atlas will give a complete picture of a particular site, particularly in micrositing for the developer. It gives you almost all information a developer requires. Need not go for a site visit. He can sit and watch it on his mobile to find out whether that area is suitable or not.
Your numerous publications and contributions on solar energy assessment and mapping are commendable. Could you discuss the potential implications of your work for policy making and regulatory frameworks in India's renewable energy sector?
Policy making is one of the important subjects which needs to be added so that the solar energy will reach every nook and corner of the country. Based on our solar atlas, on our findings, see, a place, suppose a city is there in an area where radiation is low, but his investment will be the same, but the same developer may not get the same output of what he gets in high potential areas. But this area also needs to be developed as a government of India, or a government will look in the overall development of all the areas. So, a man who invested more money and gets less output because of the lower radiation, the policy developers can price it depending on the generation concept, if at all the government wants to have the plants there also. Suppose in a high potential areas where the generation is very high, so the pricing of unit data, solar energy data can be varied from depending on the geographical locations. So, this is one of the major policy decisions the government can take. And also the government can identify these are the potential sites where anyone can go and do the solar farming. So, the government can develop those sites as a solar sites and have a single window system for clearances to ensure solar developer will just go and put their solar panels. The rest is taken care of by the government. The power evacuation, the substations, the cabling, everything can do that. And the area development, suppose the contour is uneven, they can take care of the normalizing the contour so that the plants can be easily kept. So, this will also help in policy makers to identify the potential sites, and accordingly they can make the policy what could be the prices of the solar generation for purchase. If generation is very high, they can reduce the prices. If generation is low, they can increase the prices. Differential pricing, they can always keep it. And if the virtual power plants concepts comes in there also, they can 24 hours in a solar form, they can generate solar 24 hours power supplies. Hybrid systems is one of the concepts where wind potential is high, they can have both wind and solar farms in the same location, and accordingly they can design their substations to evacuate both solar power and wind powers.